Have you ever just stopped and wondered, is the world I'm seeing the real world? Today, we're going to dive deep into philosophy, AI, and even biology to figure out how our minds, and maybe even the minds of machines, actually build the reality we live in. All right, let's jump right into the biggest question of them all. For centuries, this has been the debate. Are we born totally empty and experience rights on our mental slate? Or do we come into the world with a kind of operating system already installed? I'm telling you, the answer to this one changes everything. And to tackle this, our first stop is with the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who came along in the 18th century with a totally revolutionary answer. He basically said, forget the blank slate. Our minds are anything but empty. In fact, they come with some seriously powerful software right out of the box. Now, to get what Kant was saying, you have to grasp this one huge idea. He split reality in two. On one side, you have the noumenon. Think of this as the world as it actually is, the raw source code of the universe, totally independent of us. We can never, ever directly see it. And then there's the phenomenon. This is the world as we experience it. It's our desktop, our user interface for reality, after our mind has processed all that raw code. So here's the kicker. Your mind isn't just a passive camera, just recording what's out there. No way. Kant said the mind is an active operating system. It takes all that chaotic, messy data coming in from your senses and uses its built-in programs to organize it into the neat, orderly world you experience every day. So how does this mental OS actually work? Well, Kant said it has three main jobs. First, its tools are a priori, which is just a fancy way of saying they're pre-installed. You're born with concepts like time, space, and cause and effect. Second, these tools are constitutive. They're like algorithms that take the raw data and build it into things we recognize, like a coffee cup or a car. And third, they're limiting. Just like any software, they have hard limits. They define the absolute boundary of what's possible for you to know. And for Kant, this brilliantly explains why philosophers argue so much. He said, our mental OS is perfect for making sense of our everyday, phenomenal world. But when we try to use that same software to understand the noumenal world, that unknowable source code of reality, the system just crashes. We get paradoxes, confusion, and illusions. We're using the right tool for the wrong job. But hold on, Kant's idea isn't the only game in town, not by a long shot. Another philosopher, David Hume, had a completely opposite take. And what's wild is that his argument has found a powerful new champion in modern artificial intelligence. So let's put them head to head. For Hume, you start with a blank slate, and all knowledge comes from the outside, from experience. Even cause and effect is just a habit our brain learns. For Kant, the fundamental structures have to come from the inside. And here's where it gets wild. This exact same argument is playing out in AI today. Kant's top-down, rule-based approach, that's like old-school symbolic AI. But Hume's bottom-up, learn-from-experience idea, that's the very soul of modern deep learning. And this connection is a really big deal. I mean, the incredible success of deep learning, the tech that powers so much of our world, is basically one giant real-world experiment that seems to prove Hume was onto something. These systems really do start as blank slates and learn everything just from data. And this is the fundamental challenge to Kant's whole idea. You don't program a neural network with the idea of a cat. You just show it millions of cat pictures. And from that raw data, it figures out for itself what a cat is. It discovers the rules from experience, which really makes you wonder, maybe we don't need a pre-installed OS after all. So, who do you side with? Kant's pre-programmed mind or Hume's blank slate, which seems to be backed up by AI? For a long time, it felt like you had to pick a side. But then a brilliant new idea came along that offered a way to merge them both. Let me introduce you to evolutionary epistemology. It's a mouthful, I know, but the concept is beautiful. It takes Kant's idea of innate mental software and smashes it together with Darwin's theory of evolution. The core idea is that our mental structures aren't some abstract logical code. They're biological tools shaped by millions of years of natural selection. And here's how it solves the whole debate. First, evolutionary epistemology agrees with Kant. You are not born a blank slate. A baby comes into the world with a mental framework already in place, ready to make sense of things. But, and this is the genius part, it also agrees with Hume. So where did that pre-installed code come from? It came from experience. Not the baby's personal experience,
but the collective, brutal survival experience of our entire species, written into our genes over millennia. This completely changes the game. Kant's mental OS was fixed, rigid, a logical necessity. But the evolutionary model sees it as dynamic and flexible. It's not a set of absolute truths, it's a survival kit. Our built-in sense of 3D space isn't some universal law. It's a feature that was just incredibly useful for our ancestors who needed to throw spears and not fall out of trees. And once you accept that our OS is a product of evolution, it leads to a truly mind-bending conclusion about reality itself for every living creature. Think about it. If our mental software was tailored for our survival, then every species must have its own unique OS, tailored to its survival. We all share the same physical universe, that deep noumenal reality, but we're each using that raw data to construct a completely different phenomenal world, our own private user interface. I mean, just imagine it. A bat's reality is a rich, three-dimensional world built entirely out of sound. A bee looks at a flower and sees intricate landing patterns in ultraviolet light that are totally invisible to us. A tiny chick hatches from its egg already knowing to fear the shadow of a hawk. Each one is running a different OS, creating a different reality from the same raw data. But this brings up one last fascinating question. If evolution is so great, why didn't it just give us an OS that could perceive all of reality? Why give us a filter at all? Why not let us see the noumenon, the world as it truly is? The answer comes down to a powerful principle in biology called cognitive economy, and it's all about efficiency. Here's how it works. The raw data of the universe is almost infinitely complex. Trying to process all of it, every quantum vibration, every photon from a distant star, would be paralyzing. You'd be so busy calculating the true nature of a charging lion that it would eat you before you finished. So, and this is crucial, evolution does not select for what is true. It selects for what is useful for survival. And this is really the ultimate takeaway. Your senses, your mind, they are not a clear window looking out onto reality. They are a finely tuned, highly evolved filter, a filter that is designed to throw away almost all the information out there, just to give you a simplified, useful user interface that is optimized for one thing and one thing only, keeping you alive. So, the world you experience every moment of every day isn't the whole truth. It's a highlight reel. It's a brilliant, life-saving summary. The true genius of evolution wasn't in giving us access to the maximum amount of reality, but in giving us precisely the minimum amount of reality we need to get by. And that, right there, might be the most profound thought of all.